I moved to Hollow Creek last fall, drawn by its quiet, lonely beauty. The town was surrounded by dense woods and skirted by a large, dark lake that often lay still as glass. But the strangest thing about Hollow Creek wasn't the solitude, it was the mist. Every night, at precisely midnight, a thick, chilling fog rolled in from the lake, creeping down the streets like it was alive, filling every alley, every crack, until the entire town was blanketed in its damp, suffocating embrace. The locals never seemed to talk about it, though. Whenever I asked, they'd just shrug, their eyes a little too wide, lips a little too tight. Nothing to worry about, they'd say almost in unison. Just the mist. The fog became part of my routine, like the nightly bells from the church tower. But one night, the mist came early. I was reading in my small apartment when I noticed the fog swirling just outside my window. The clock on the wall read 11:23. This wasn't right. I stepped closer to the window, trying to see through the dense haze. The fog seemed darker, almost black, coiling in the streetlights, swallowing the light. Then, just as I was about to turn away, I saw something move. A shadow, or maybe the faintest hint of a figure. It disappeared so quickly that I wasn't sure I'd seen anything at all. I brushed it off as my imagination. Maybe the strange chill in the air was getting to me. But I couldn't sleep, not that night. I lay there, listening, feeling like I was being watched. Every sound outside seemed sharper, closer. And I was just drifting off when I heard it. A whisper. At first, I thought it was the wind. But then it came again, low, almost like a hiss, echoing through the silence of my room. Come closer. The words slithered into my mind, wrapping around my thoughts, freezing me in place. I told myself it was just a dream, a hallucination, anything. But the whisper returned, louder this time, more urgent. Come, into the mist. My body moved before I could stop it, my feet hitting the cold floor, moving towards the door. I felt numb, like I was under someone else's control. My hands were shaking as I opened my front door and stepped out. The mist was thicker now, like smoke, swirling with a life of its own. It clung to my skin, icy, clammy, making it hard to breathe. I couldn't see more than a foot in front of me, but the whispers guided me, pulling me further into the darkness. And then I saw them. Figures, vague, shifting shapes within the mist, like people made of shadow. They were standing motionless, surrounding me, their heads tilted, eyes hollow and lifeless. But they weren't people. They couldn't be. Their limbs were too long, their faces too blank, like stretched-out masks. I stumbled back, trying to turn, to run, but I couldn't move. The shadows began to close in, and then I heard the whisper again, clearer this time, right in my ear. We've been waiting. I felt a cold hand brush against my shoulder, fingers curling around my arm. I looked down, and where the hand touched, my skin turned gray, lifeless, like the fog itself was draining me. Panic surged, and I yanked free, stumbling backward, gasping for air. I don't know how I made it back inside, but I slammed the door behind me, locking it, my heart racing as I slumped against the wood. Outside, the fog pressed against the windows, thick and dark, like it was hungry, like it wanted to get in. By morning, the mist was gone, just like always, leaving only damp streets and the faintest smell of rot. I convinced myself it was a nightmare, something I'd imagined. But when I looked in the mirror, there were faint, grayish bruises on my shoulder where the hand had grabbed me. Now, every night, I hear the whispers. They call me from the mist, promising to finish what they started. And one day I don't think I'll be able to resist.